Live from the UK, broadcasting around the world, you're listening to Talking Minaret, discussing matters that affect you, streaming to the world and beyond.
Welcome to Talking Minaret. This week we're joined by the Abdullahs. We're going to discuss the issues of football, games and deen. We're going to divide this episode into sections. First point being video games and playing football is normal. Everyone does it. So what's the problem? Question mark. Point 2, is football like a religion? Point 3, should we not use technology? Question mark. So, Assalamu alaikum everyone.
Walaikum salam.
Alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
So the first talking point, video games and playing football is normal. Everyone does it. So what's the problem?
Well, to be honest, throughout my life, both video games and football have been a big part of it. Whether you be watching it on TV or watching my friends and family play, and obviously playing both myself as well. There's an upside and a downside to everything, and I believe that video games and football is no different. Me, for example, I play both for many reasons. I've been playing Call of Duty Warzone recently with my cousins a lot due to the current COVID situation, and I enjoy playing football as it allows me to forget the negative aspects of my life. The downside to these things are that you may easily become addicted to gaming or playing sports. And obviously, as we know, addiction, any type of addiction is bad on her own. So that's my point on it.
Yeah, so the brother just said there's upsides and downsides to almost everything. The fact that when people become addicted to things like these, they often tend to neglect things like salah. They can be disobedient to their parents, and this addiction causes them to have more sin and to commit more bad deeds. So I think because the fact that video games and playing football, the upside can be that it takes you away from anything negative that's going on in your life. But the fact that it can also become addictive, and it can act as like a catalyst to doing more bad deeds and forgetting to do good deeds. That's where the problem comes, and that's where the downside arises. It's not like doing anything against Islam, but when that border gets crossed, when you miss salah, when you don't listen to your parents because of it, I think that's when the problem comes in.
Yeah, I think what he's trying to say is, like, if you're playing video games or football, but the moment you put it before Allah or above Allah and his teachings, then that's when it becomes a problem. So it's very situational. It depends on how much of it you're doing and sort of how much of your time you're devoting towards football, video games, etc.
I suppose you could also relate that to like work. You know, work, people treat that like it's the be all and end all. Like it's their purpose in life to work and earn money, and that's it. And I suppose anything in excess can lead to a distraction away from the deen. You could apply that anywhere, not just video games and football.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I just wanted to add to the point that the brothers were making. So the question is, video games and football, playing football is normal. Now, the thing with the word normal is normal can change from one period of time to another period of time. So what's normal in today's day and age may not have been the same normal 50 years ago, for example. So if you're asking me the question, is playing football and playing video games normal today? The answer for me would be yes, it is normal, because that's what the majority of people are doing, which I think defines normal. People call normal what the majority of people do at the time. But in my viewpoint, I think that it's only normal because that's what everyone's doing. That's what we are sort of believed to be normal. If it was a different time frame, this wouldn't be normal. If people from for example, 50 years ago saw what, for example, our generation are doing now, spending 3-4 hours on a screen playing video games, pushing a few buttons, they'd probably turn around and say, "Are these lot crazy? Is this what they do with their lives?" So I think it's because of what society has put into our heads. We've grown up with this around us, and I think going back to the point about addiction and putting it before Allah, at the end of the day, these video game producers, they want to make money. Now they're quite clever in the way they do it. They make games to make people addicted, to make them want to spend hours and hours on it. Otherwise they wouldn't make as much money.
So brother, I wanted to add on your point when you said that children are just spending a lot of time on these devices and technology, etc., and gaming. But they're not just spending time. Recently, I've seen so many posts, etc., on kids who are using their mom and dad's credit cards and debit cards to purchase in-game features. So initially, the game may be free, but as they say, nothing is free in life. So what they make kids do is they advertise the in-game features in such a way that they're mesmerized by it, and they really want to buy these in-game features to enhance their in-game performance or experience. And on top of that, gaming is a lot more prominent in people's lives nowadays than football, for example. As everywhere around the world, you'll see that younger age kids are getting access and availability to any device, maybe a phone or a tablet or iPad, anything. And through these devices is where they just spend most of their day. They spend most of the day on these devices, and they do nothing productive other than just play their games on those devices.
It sounds like it's got to do with balance and proportionality in terms of your life and what you do. There's an ayat in the Quran where Allah says in Surah Nam, verse 32, "What is the life of this world but play and amusement?" So Allah's questioning the people. So we shouldn't be distracted. And you know what? We're talking about the younger generation here, maybe some young adults, but if we look at the Sahaba, I think it might surprise a lot of the Muslims that the Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, they were all relatively young. In fact, Ali radiallahu anhu was 10 years old. Uqba bin Amir was 14. Jabir bin Abdullah, Zaid bin Haris, 15 years old. Abdullah bin Masud, Habib ibn Al-Arat, Zubair bin Awam, 16 years old. Muaz bin Jabal, Musab ibn Umair, 18. And I'll go into Musab ibn Umair later on. Abu Musa al-Ashari, 19. Jafar bin Abu Talib, 22. Uthman bin Affan, Uthman bin Huwairis, Abu Ubaidah, Abu Huraira, Umar, between 25 to 31. So, I mean, like, everybody's relatively young. So you got to question yourself, where's the line drawn? Is there a distraction that's being created here? And I think what some of the brothers are mentioning in this conversation is that, you know, people, whatever you do, if it goes in excess, like if you eat too much chocolate, you're gonna have a problem. If you have too many chicken wings from Dixie's or whatever it is, or like Pepe's, or what's that place in London?
Which one? Which one?
East London.
They got PFC there, and they got Spices too, or something like that.
Spice Hut.
Yeah, something like that. And they got some all right ones. So like, before we turn this into a food debate, because I know, like people want to. No, I'm being serious. Like, whenever you mention food, like, the Londoners are always eager to tell the Birmingham lot their food is better, and the Birmingham lot are always eager to tell the London lot their food is better. And then you got people in Wales trying to argue it, but I think both London and Birmingham are like, there's not even an argument, but anyways,
Yeah.
separate debate. Maybe another podcast. But I mean, like, well, food podcast. Yeah,
Food
that's right.
podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, we should do that. But look, what these young Sahaba accomplish. I'm not saying that playing video games and watching football isn't the right thing to do. Maybe, you know, having a bit of fun, that's fine. But Allah does remind us the fact that, look, what is this life? What is the life of this world but play and amusement? We shouldn't get too carried away with it. I think predominantly that's what the viewpoint that we're getting here. I don't know. What you guys think? I mean, like, did that surprise you, the fact that the Sahaba were really young, like really young?
Well, I'd say it surprises me now because of what kids are like now and what kids are like, how they used to be back then. But I think that's because of what society's kind of made us view the young people at now. Like, for example, 50, 60 years ago, teenagers could get married like for like young teenagers can get married, and it was like a social norm. Whereas now, things like that wouldn't happen, and we don't see of it as something normal. But so for us, I'd say it's kind of surprising to hear that they were so young. But I think back in the day, it was probably something quite, I wouldn't say normal, but it was more normal than it is now.
Yeah, definitely. Because if you think about it, when I heard you reading out all those ages, I was shocked. They do seem quite young. Because if you think about what they were doing back then, they were spending their life in the way of the Deen, in the way of Allah, and then you look at like sort of the present day, and you think that society has literally mapped out your whole life for you without us even realizing. Everyone has like their own plan, but they don't realize that that plan has been altered because of what society thinks is right or wrong. So, for example, if I just say roughly, like from the age of 1 to 12, you just play and play and play. About 12 years old, you go to secondary school. From year 7 to year 9, it's not considered as you don't need to study too much. Year 10, year 11, you start thinking about GCSEs. In those sort of ages, it's okay to play PlayStation a lot, chill with your friends. And then you go to college, you do your A levels. Things start to get a little bit more serious once you get to university. So up to the age of about 21, 22, you can even stretch it to 25. People, it's that age where you have fun. You're young, you relax, and then you start thinking about marriage, start thinking about kids, thinking about buying a house, buying a car.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? These ages, people think, like for a lot of Muslim girls nowadays think, I want to be married by 21, I want to be married by 22. These ages come from what they experience around society. Our whole lives are basically what we think is normal is decided by society.
Yeah, I suppose it makes it even more difficult if that society is un-Islamic. So then haram things come into play, into the mindset.
100%.
That's a great point, actually. Yeah, so the next point that we're going to discuss, point number 2, is football like a religion?
Okay, so talking about is football like a religion, going back to that, I believe that this is very true for many countries around the world. Especially, and this doesn't even apply for now. This has been for a long, long time. Football is so powerful and fans around the world are mad for the sport. In today's game, football is dominated by a few players. In my eyes, the top three being Messi, Ronaldo and Neymar. In each of their individual countries, they are seen as idols. People put pictures of them in their room and basically worship them. Before their time, there were two other individuals that used to be and still are worshipped. They are Pele and Maradona. The citizens of Brazil and Argentina will go to war with you if you say anything negative about these guys. And that's saying something. This is what the world has come to. Fighting over football players.
So I think what the brother was saying there was very true. Even it doesn't have to be like any specific South American like teams or anything. Even when I went, because I'm from Bangladesh, and when I went to Bangladesh, I saw Brazil flags and Brazil spray painted on walls. So it's not only like specific countries; it's all over the world. Like football is seen as sort of like a religion, and the idols, like the brother was saying, are almost like they're being worshipped. If a lot of scenarios, like real life scenarios, have happened that, say, someone that they really like has passed away, or like something tragic happened to one of their footballing idols, and then there's people that have committed suicide because of this sort of addiction and this high passion for this sport and for these idols. That's when it becomes haram for Muslims.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think, like both the brothers said, for some people, football is a fundamental part of their life. Personally, for me, I'm a huge fan of football. I'm a Liverpool supporter, and I'm particularly happy at the moment because obviously, we're dominating. We've dominated the past couple of years, and recently we've just signed Thiago. We just got Diogo Jota as well, so I'm happy at the moment. I follow football quite regularly, but I wouldn't for myself anyway, I wouldn't say it's a fundamental part of my life, and it definitely would not, lead me to some situations that the brothers have mentioned about stories that they've heard of, obviously people committing suicide, etc. But yeah, I do agree. There are people that follow football so closely that it starts to, affect the way they behave, the way they sort of mentally feel. But that's when it's crossing the border, really.
I've had some discussions actually with non-believers about this. It came about when I'm in the office and I need to go do Jummah, and they've questioned me on it obviously because they see me walking out the office the same time, the same day every week, and they asked me about it, and they asked me why am I so serious about it, and I put the question to them, the fact that the instincts of a person. One of the instincts is the sanctification instinct, to look up to something higher than you. Whether you fulfill that instinct in a correct manner or not, well, that's a separate question. The thing is with us, we done on our previous podcast how to prove Islam is the truth, 100% without doubt. So I'm fulfilling my need to look up to something higher than me, to worship something higher than me in the correct form. But I argued with the non-Muslims the fact that the way you guys are doing is you're looking up to something higher than yourself, i.e. this team, what it symbolizes. When I go to pray on that day, you go to your football stadiums religiously. I go to the mosque, you go to the football stadiums. I try to learn about my deen. You try to learn about your deen and everything about it, which is, your football team. So what's the difference? Like you guys have already pre-planned and pre-booked and paid up for your season tickets. So what's the difference? So I'll put it like that. It kind of stumped the person on the other side, as you can imagine. I suppose they've never really looked at it like that. And I suppose you could apply that to anything really, like work. How many times have you heard of people like that? We mentioned it, one of the brothers mentioned it about, missing your salah for video games. Well, how about missing your salah for work? Because you don't want to look stupid in front of your new managers, just in case they look at you differently, or just in case they give you less money, which is a non-argument considering that your risk, your provisions is already set and Allah's already written down how much you're going to earn. Like if you're meant to earn only £1 in your life, believe me, you will only earn £1 in your life. If you're meant to be a millionaire and Allah's written that for you, believe me, you're going to become a millionaire. Like you forgoing your obligations to your salah, your dawah, whatever it might be, for work, football, games, whatever it is, it's something that can't be done, and a Muslim should never put anything in front of his deen. I think that's the basic gist of it.
So as the brother said, I'd like to add on to his point about missing salah due to being too busy with work, or using that using work as an excuse to be busy and not pray your salah. So previously, when I was in college, I used to have regular breaks, and normally I would be able to read Zuhr and Asr prayer in college. So what used to happen was, after lesson, when I used to be on my breaks with my friends, in my college there was a prayer room. So if you wanted to, you had the opportunity and chance to pray your salah. So most of my friends, me and most of my friends, we used to pray Zuhr as soon as it used to be time, because that's when our break time was. But there used to be a few individuals that used to always reject our offer to pray and used to go and enjoy their break by either hanging around with other friends or going out to eat, or etc. I can relate to the brother on that topic.
So, brother, speaking to today, because I mentioned about risk, right? And like one of the brothers mentioned about deeds. Have you heard about deeds?
Deets.
Deeds, yeah.
I've heard.
Yeah, so like deeds is basically, on Snapchat.
Yeah.
So basically, people contact other people on Snapchat telling them, I can get you £10,000.
Oh,
Yeah.
squares. Yeah,
What's it called?
Squares.
Squares?
Yeah, that's yeah. Okay, we don't have to go into that detail.
I've never heard it in my life.
Wait, don't tell me one of your mates got done over like that.
Nah, no. No, they haven't got done over like that. But I just want to mention about, what because the broad topic that we're talking about is what extent people will go to for their risk, for their money that they're gonna earn in their lifetime, which is already set by Allah, by the way, because one of Allah's 99 names is Ar-Razak, which means the provider. So it makes zero sense trying to earn that risk via haram means. And the example that I was gonna give is this deets thing. I don't know what you guys want to call it, but
Squares.
squares or deets. So the person will message the other person saying, give me your details, I'll get you 10k, and from that 10k you have to give me 2k. So what they're doing is, with the details, they're taking out loans, like bank loans, yeah. And they get 1k or 2k from it, and then obviously then the person who's received it on the other side are obliged to pay it back with
Oh my
interest
God.
as well.
Oh my God.
So that's what's happening. So basically, I think the point I was trying to relate it to a risk.
Yeah, now you say what it is. I have heard of it. I'm not gonna lie.
It's actually really common. I remember I was in the bank once and some brother was on that.
It's interesting how far people will go, the desperation for money and the worldly life. And it reminds me of there's an ayah in the Quran, chapter 13, verse 28. Allah says, "Truly it is in the remembrance of Allah that hearts find peace." For the Sahaba previously, the young ones. Musab ibn Umair, I mentioned one of them. And Musab ibn Umair, interesting story about him. He was raised in comfort and abundance, being member of Makkah's most wealthiest family, one of the most wealthy families. He prioritized working for the deen and not becoming rich in the haram. It's interesting examples that you can take from young people, relatively young people, such as Musab ibn Umair, in their life. And he was one of the ones that he was sent to Medina. He was known in Medina as the reader because he had an understanding of Islam, and he could quote in terms of ayat or whatever it might be in relation to Islam. That is a pure example of a person being completely rich and being raised in comfort, foregoing all of that for the sake of the deen. By the way, I'm not saying that being rich is haram or something, but it's about priorities. There is the other argument: I can't make money without doing haram job or doing haram. But one ayat that's always brought me comfort is Allah says in Surah At-Talaq, verse 2 to 3, He says, "And whoever fears Allah, He will make a way out for him and will provide for him from where he does not expect." Allah is saying the fact that, you shouldn't fear your risk declining. Rather, you should fear Allah, and He will provide the way for you.
Just to add, yeah, I'm not sure on the exact, but it's something like, if you make one step towards Allah, Allah makes 10 steps towards you. So the explanation of this is basically, if you make your effort to do your part, to try your best in terms of deen, Allah will make it easier for you. Allah will come towards you as well.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on, point 3. Should we not use technology? Question mark. A big question mark. Some of you might have heard about the TikTok ban. Have you heard about the TikTok ban?
The one in America, yeah.
Yeah, the one in America. Yeah, that's it. I was watching a thingy this morning, CNN. They were talking about how Trump's trying to make himself big because of the elections coming up, and he's trying to say the fact that, we made a deal. Walmart and another company, an American company, have made a deal with TikTok that they will manage the American TikTok, like the America's side of TikTok.
There'll be like a headquarters in America, yeah.
Yeah, and he wants to look good in it because the elections are coming up.
It's good. It's good publicity for him because there's millions of users, especially in the USA. And if he can, what he did was he kind of said he might ban TikTok, and then the fact that now he's saying, okay, no, I'm not gonna ban it. That's like giving a better perspective. Like, it's good publicity for him. So he'll probably, he's trying to get more voters and things like that from doing this.
Yeah. You're trying to look like the good Samaritan in that. Yeah, that's the one.
Point number 3 that we want to discuss: should we not use technology as a question mark? It's a big question mark.
Well, I have quite a few opinions on this. One being that technology can be used in many ways, and as a baseline, any addiction to technology is haram. But there are recently there is a lot more easy access to haram things on any device, whether it be your phone, your tablet, your laptop. But with this, it is very easy to get sins and fall in the trap of watching bad things and hearing bad things, which tally on and add on. Along with this, there's a point I want to make about technology and social media because in recently, a lot of preachers and lecturers have been using social media as a platform to spread the message of Islam and bring people in to the deen. So, how they can do this is through social media platforms such as Instagram and Snapchat, and recently a lot more people have been on TikTok as well. So these three platforms can be used to spread Islam.
Yeah, I do agree with some of the points that the brother said. So going back to the question, should we stop using technology? I think the simple answer to that is we can't really stop, because in this day and age, no matter what, no matter what you do in life, you will always at some point have to use technology. Whether it's, I don't know, at work when you have to use a computer, or you're on your phone where you have to contact even your parents on WhatsApp, for example. Even if they're small things, you can't ever really get away from technology at this current time. So, but I do have an opinion in terms of how to use technology. Now, with most things, you can use something in a good way and in a bad way. With technology, it's the same thing. You can use technology in so many good ways, like the brother mentioned on social media, etc. I mean, a lot of a lot of people are learning about Islam through the internet as well, through technology. You know, you have like YouTubers like Muhammad Hijab, Ali Dawa, etc. like always posting Islamic videos. You have YouTube channels that dedicated to Islamic lectures, positive ways that technology is helping Islam. But in my honest opinion, I do feel like the bad outweighs the good. We can always say that there's always good and bad, but I definitely think with technology, there's a lot more bad that comes with it than good, because you have Islamic scholars, you have these lectures, you have these even our podcast, we're using technology right now. Yeah. But there will always be more fitna from technology than there will be good, than good. Examples are like, nowadays they've got Muslim dating websites. You know, my brother mentioned social media and how you can spread Islam, but people also start, getting into haram relationships based on social media. They see each other's profiles, they start talking to each other, messaging each other, things like that. So there's a lot of negative effects which I think outweigh the good.
Adding on to the brother, I completely agree with what he's saying. As first of all, from the start, as a young child, kids have been brought up with technology. For example, their mom, their dad, their brothers, their siblings, they all use technology. So the question being, should we not use technology, is a bit void because no one can escape from technology. It's everywhere. And talking about how as you grow up, using social media for spreading Islam is obviously a positive. And as the brother said, there's a negative in the fact that people, they make accounts and they post pictures of themselves in whatever way that may be, to maybe get attention from the opposite sex, and therefore like Muslim dating apps have now come about, and people get into haram relationships through that. So there's a downside and an upside to everything, but I do agree with the point that the negatives are currently outweighing the positives.
Yeah, definitely. If you think about it, for every Mufti Menk out there in social media, there's probably about 100 negative influences. So if obviously I've just made those numbers up, but it gives you an idea of the imbalance between the good and the bad.
Yeah, I agree. I think what both the brothers were saying is that the bad deeds that can happen, like the talking to the opposite gender, and that leading to, potential zina and, this and that. And also the how easy it is to watch, filthy things and to look at filthy things. The the fact that these are so easy to do nowadays, that's where the, technology is sort of disliked in a way by Muslims because of this. And what the main thing is for for everything we've spoken about, I think there needs to be a balance.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you guys, what do you guys think in terms of technology and how it's affecting kids nowadays? Because in my opinion, I think especially with, for example, um,
Fortnite.
yeah, for example, Fortnite, yeah, that's a prime example. Honestly, I was thinking the same thing. I was going to say Fortnite. Kids are kids are nowadays are addicted to technology. So the question was, should we stop using technology? But I want to ask you guys something else as well. What's your opinion on how technology is affecting the very younger kids? So for example, the age between 3 and 14, for example, because that's the age where they're, sort of having most of their personal development, shaping who they're going to be in the future. Basing is That's the age where they sort of develop their foundation in terms of education, etc. So it's quite a critical time in their lives. In my opinion, I think technology it's not having a completely negative effect, but the majority it is because you know this is the age where the addiction takes its toll the most. I think. I mean, I don't want to name any names, but I've seen kids that if you take away their tablet for 5 minutes, they don't know what to do themselves. They can't, it's affecting their social skills. They're on technology so much that they can't carry a conversation. They can't, have an intellectual conversation that's expected of someone for the age of 8. They can't carry that out. They can't, do. They're not very sociable, for example. Even in terms of education, they're behind in school because they're always on technology. When I was young, um, if I was misbehaving or something, my parents used to say to me, "Okay, I'm not gonna let you have any sweets for a week," and that used to be my punishment. You can't have any sweets. But the punishment nowadays is, I'm gonna take your tablet off you for one day. I mean, that just goes to show how much of a big thing technology is for these kids, and I think it's just affecting them in a way that isn't really good for them. I come from an optical background. So another thing I wanted to just say was kids nowadays the prevalence of short-sightedness has increased so much now in young kids because they're always working at short working distances, as in from looking at their tablets all the time, looking at screens, consoles, and they just get every kid's wearing glasses nowadays. So yeah, I think it's a major thing.
Your points are extremely valid in the fact that you said that between the ages of 3 to
Yeah,
14 is when
yeah,
kids grow both obviously physically and mentally. And if their
yeah,
fundamentals are in technology, in the terms that their social life, their whole life, they've been basically texting kids and typing instead of using their mouth to actually speak. That just
mm,
shows that that they will be affected in the long term, as social skills are needed throughout your whole life. And obviously, even though they are kids right now, when in an interview situation or a group situation, those same kids who are quite crafty on their devices won't be able to speak up for themselves in a group or interview situation or with their colleagues, etc. And that can have a big impact on their work life, their social life, and just them being able to and them not being able to communicate with anyone in the correct manner puts them at a disadvantage in this world. That's what I believe.
if you think about it, I just add into that, it'll affect their confidence. They'll see, you know, other people being able to speak up, voice their opinion. But if you're constantly staring at your screen and you don't have a life when you look up from your screen and you can't communicate effectively, you can't keep up a conversation, then it's going to affect your confidence. You're going to develop things like social anxiety. The amount of introverts are increasing nowadays as well.
So the brother was saying, I think also the fact that how kids are on their devices all day and all night, I feel like it has a huge effect on their attention span. And because of this, they find it hard to concentrate in school, for example, which would have a huge effect on their education when they're young, affects how they are when they're old. I think throughout their whole life, because of this technology use, they wouldn't progress to their full potential because they've like hindered their progression because of their attention span due to having these kind of um, technologies and being on their devices all day and night. Also, the fact that they are on their devices a lot, especially during quarantine, they go out, they go outside a lot less, which would probably stagnate their physical activity. So they're staying inside. A lot of people now have like vitamin D deficiency, and I think that's increasing because of the fact that they're on their phone or they're on their tablets inside and doing less activities outside. As for example, like 20, 30 years ago, that as compared to those kids and the nowadays kids, in terms of health, I think physical activity and this and that was a lot more prevalent in the older generation children.
Okay, we're about 22, 23 at the moment. If you think even earlier than 20, 30 years, if you think about 10, 12 years ago when we were small, we used to spend so much time outdoors. We used to be outdoors all day. All day we used to spend outdoors. And kids nowadays, they're constantly indoors. It's the exact opposite. And we're only going back 10, 12 years.
Yeah, and the fact that outdoors, when we were playing, we didn't play like by ourselves. We didn't play on the screen. We were having these like interpersonal human interactions. That's huge. Because of that, that's why I think the social anxiety of this day and age is so much more than how it used to be back then. And like the social aspects of a lot of children's lives nowadays. I see even people I'm related to, people like friends and things that I people I know have these social anxiety and how obviously I don't know if it's solely technology that's affected them like this, but I feel like it has a big part in it.
Yeah, definitely, I agree.
So I think from a historical perspective, if you look at the use of technology, during the Uthmani Khilafah, we had an issue of when all these technological advancements were happening, the Industrial Revolution, there was a lack of ijtihad. Ijtihad is generating a new Islamic ruling on a new reality using the Usul al-Fiqh, the Usul, the Quran, the Sunnah, Ijma Sahaba, Qiyas. So he did this successfully previously, but during the latter years of the Uthmani Khilafah, that started to not happen so much. So when new technology was happening, Muslims were unable to not understand whether it should be used or not. I.e., giving an example, that when the telephone was generated, the imams at the time were giving out fatwas, the fact that using telephones is haram because the devil's on the other side, shaitan is on the other side speaking to you. So the reason I say this is because technology, it is down to what we use it for and what we shouldn't use it for, and at the same time the Muslims should be always at the forefront of technology. Muslims should always be at the forefront, and that exactly happened. Brother mentioned about optics and things like that. Like we were performing cataract eye operations around 900 or something like that.
Yeah.
Once the Europeans, they caught up with us like in the 19th century or something like that, or late 18th century. So we were literally like 1,000 years ahead of people. So it's not a thing about banning technology per se, but it's down to what the brothers mentioned before, what we use that technology for. We shouldn't tread the same path that we did before. In fact, we should just apply the Islamic rulings upon technology, because technology in itself, it's it's not something that's forbidden, and maybe there's a confusion between the concepts of Hadara and Madaniya. The Hadara and Hadara translates to civilization, and Madaniya translates to urbanisms. So civilization is unique to a particular viewpoint of life. There's a distinction between civilizations and urbanisms, Hadara and Madaniya. One must also be aware of the distinction that exists between objects of an urbanism, Madaniya, and that result from a civilization, Hadara, and the objects of an urbanism that results from science and industry, i.e., there'd be no objection to adopting, say, Western urbanisms resulting from science and industry. That's fine, like hospitals or cars or whatever it might be. They don't have any religious or, ideological linkages. But urbanisms or objects or whatever it might be resulting from Western civilization would be wrong, because Western civilization, the Hadara, it has ideological or religious linkages, liberalism, secularism, Christianity. It contradicts Islam, the Islamic Hadara, from the very basis upon which it is established, i.e. its viewpoint towards life. Objects of Hadara that are the product of science industry, such as laboratory, equipment, medical and industrial machinery, furniture, carpets, etc. They are universal objects of urbanisms or Madaniya. So let me give you examples of other, obviously the crucifix is haram, wearing one, kippah, indecent establishments, statues of so-called art with tones of indecency, democracy, secular thought, liberalism, feminist symbolisms. These are all linked to the Western Hadara civilizations. They're urbanisms, they're objects, right? But because they're linked to a civilization that's counter to the Islamic Hadara, we wouldn't be able to take it in. You should remember that Western civilization is based upon the basis of detaching religion from life's affairs and prevents religion from having any influence on life's affairs, whilst the Islamic civilization is built on the belief in Allah and that He has assigned a system for man. There should be a clear distinction between Hadara and Madaniya. I mean, like, I've had people tell me the fact that, how can you talk about Islam at all? You're using a phone. I'm thinking, what's that got to do with it? I don't understand. The phone is just, it's an urbanism that's not, it's linked to technology. It doesn't have any religious significance. It's not like when you look at the phone, you think, oh, that's a Christian phone, or that's a Muslim phone.
Yeah.
It's just an object. Back to the point, like I said, Muslims should always be at the forefront of technology. So, okay, look, my final question to you guys then would be, if you had a choice to make, which one would it be? Warzone or Fortnite?
Warzone, easy.
Warzone.
Easily Warzone.
100%. That's
Warzone.
no question about it. Come on.
We got a final point from one of the brothers.
So, the last point I wanted to make before leaving was, if any of our viewers are planning on buying the PS5, make sure to pray Salah 5 times a day.
PS5. Okay.
Praise Allah 5.
Cool. Assalamu alaikum everyone, and thank you for listening.
Assalamu alaikum everybody.
Assalamu
Thank you for
alaikum.
listening.
Thank you, sir.